Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a place where you can rest deeply now. Perhaps you're lying down, the day's weight finally dissolving into the surface beneath you. Or maybe you're sitting, allowing your spine to settle into its natural, gentle grace. There's nowhere you need to be in this moment. Nothing you need to achieve by listening. You can simply let the sound of this voice be a quiet presence in the room with you, like moonlight pooling on a still floor. There's no test later. No secret to memorize. Just an invitation to rest, and to listen from that place of rest. For the next while, we'll explore a way of seeing that is as ancient as the hills and as fresh as this very breath. A wisdom that doesn't ask you to become someone else, but gently reveals who you've always been beneath the stories and the striving. So, let your eyes close if they wish. Let your breath find its own, unhurried rhythm. And let's begin this exploration not at the beginning of a long journey, but at the center of the quiet you carry within you right now. There was a builder of bridges. Not the physical kind of steel and concrete, but the digital kind, vast networks that connected people across the globe. His life was a constellation of screens, a river of code, and a relentless pursuit of the next disruptive innovation. He had built a company from a single idea in his college dorm room into a platform used by millions. He had the accolades, the financial freedom, the sleek, minimalist home that was featured in design magazines. By every external measure, he had crossed a finish line many only dream of. And yet, each night, after the last video call ended and the house fell into a profound silence, a familiar hollow feeling would expand in his chest. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was more like a quiet, persistent echo in a beautifully furnished but empty room. He would find himself scrolling through metrics, user growth, engagement rates, market share, not for analysis, but as a kind of numbing ritual, hoping to see a number that would somehow feel like enough. It never did. The "what's next" was always louder than the "well done." He had spent years building a magnificent castle, only to discover he was a restless ghost wandering its halls, unable to sit down and simply inhabit the rooms. What this bridge builder encountered is a truth that the Buddha illuminated with profound clarity over 2,000 years ago. He called it dukkha, often translated as suffering, but perhaps better understood as a persistent sense of unease, of things being subtly off-kilter, a deep dissatisfaction that persists even in the midst of success. The Buddha's first noble truth is simply this: there is dukkha. Life, in its conditioned, impermanent nature, involves friction, disappointment, aging, sickness, and loss. But more subtly, it involves this very feeling the builder knew so well. The ache that comes from clinging to things that are, by their nature, unable to provide lasting satisfaction. We believe peace is a destination. We work, strive, and build, convinced that the next achievement will finally be the one that allows us to rest. But like a horizon, it recedes as we approach. The builder thought his peace was waiting for him on the other side of a successful exit, a certain net worth, a particular recognition. He arrived, and his peace was not there. It had never been located in those conditions at all. He was chasing the reflection of the moon in 100 different puddles, never thinking to look up at the sky. If this feeling resonates with you, that sense of moving from one goal to the next, with the satisfaction always being brief and the wanting always returning, then you are already touching a deep truth of the human experience. You are not alone, and you are not broken. You are simply operating from a very common, yet fundamentally mistaken, map of where peace is to be found. If exploring a different map, a path out of this exhausting cycle, calls to you, then consider this an invitation to stay. Subscribing to Monk's Temple is like leaving a gentle lantern lit for yourself, a way to easily return to this space of remembrance whenever the noise of the world becomes too loud, whenever you forget the sky and get lost in the puddles again. We are so grateful you have found your way here tonight. The Buddha's genius was not just in diagnosing this persistent unease, but in identifying its cause. The second noble truth points to the origin of dukkha, tanha, thirst, craving, clinging. This is the engine of our suffering. It's important to understand this is not about ordinary, fleeting wants. It's about the attachment to those wants, the belief that our happiness, our wholeness, is dependent upon them. It's the quality of desperation. I must have this to be okay. I must achieve that to be worthy. I must avoid this other thing to be safe. We attach our sense of self to incredibly fragile things, to our job title, our relationship status, our physical appearance, our possessions, even our opinions. We say, I am successful, or I am loved, or I am right, and we tie our inner stability to these external, ever-changing conditions. When the stock market dips, we feel we are failing. When someone criticizes us, we feel we are crumbling. When a wrinkle appears, we feel we are disappearing. This is an exhausting way to live. It's like building your house on the banks of a river that is constantly flooding, and then spending all your energy building higher walls, rather than moving to stable ground. This leads us to a cornerstone of the Buddha's teaching, a concept that when truly understood, can bring immense relief, anicca, impermanence. Everything that arises, passes away. Everything that is composed, will decompose. This is not a pessimistic view. It is a simple, neutral fact of existence. The storm passes. The pain subsides. The joy fades. The new car becomes the old car. The strong young body becomes the aging body. The certain opinion becomes the questioned opinion. Look at the natural world, day yields to night, summer to autumn, bloom to decay to soil to new bloom. Nothing holds still. We are not separate from this flow. Our bodies are not solid statues, but processions of cells being born, living, dying, and being replaced. Our minds are not stable entities, but streams of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, each one dependent on a cause, each one making way for the next. To expect anything in this realm of form to be permanent is to invite inevitable disappointment. It is to plant a seed and demand it never grow, never change, never flower, and never return to the earth. Our suffering so often comes from this demand. We want the pleasant feeling to stay. We want the unpleasant feeling to leave. We want the person we love to never change. We want our health, our wealth, our circumstances to be fixed points in the swirling universe. And when they are not, which they never are, we feel betrayed by life itself. So if everything is in this constant state of flux, if our very bodies and minds are rivers of change, where can we find peace? The peace we long for cannot be found in trying to stop the river. That effort is the source of our deepest exhaustion. The peace is found in a radical shift of identity, from identifying with the water rushing by, to resting as the riverbank itself, the stable, witnessing presence that contains the flow. This is the profound invitation of the Buddha's teaching on anatta, or non-self. Now, this can sound abstract or even frightening. We might think, if there's no self, then who am I? Do I disappear? Let's explore this with gentleness. You are not being asked to disappear. You are being invited to investigate what you have always assumed yourself to be. We have a thought, I am worried, and we believe there is a solid, permanent I that possesses the worry. But look closely. Is there a thinker prior to the thought? Or does the thought simply arise, and then a second thought comes to claim it? That's my worry. This claiming is the activity of the mind, creating the illusion of an owner. The Buddha encouraged us to see experience as it is. In the seen, there is only the seen; in the heard, only the heard; in the felt, only the felt. When a sound occurs, there is hearing. Later, the mind constructs, I heard that. But in the pristine moment of experience, is there a separate hearer? Or is there just the luminous event of hearing happening? This is not a philosophy to argue about. It is an experiment in awareness you can try right now. Close your eyes. Listen to the sounds around you. Don't name them or think about them. Just let the raw experience of sound wash through you. In those few seconds of pure listening, where was the you that was listening? Wasn't there just an open, aware space, and sound dancing within it? That open space is closer to your true nature than any story you have about yourself. I remember a time when I was utterly caught in a story of being wronged. A business partner had made a decision that impacted me deeply, and my mind was a raging storm of injustice, replaying conversations, drafting arguments, and feeling the heat of anger in my chest. This went on for days. I was so identified with being the victim. Then, while walking in a park, utterly lost in this mental movie, a child's laughter cut through the noise. It was a pure, spontaneous sound. For one flash, my attention was pulled completely into the hearing of that laughter. In that instant, the story of me and my problem vanished. There was just the sound, joyful, empty, free. And then, like a rubber band snapping back, the story returned. Oh right, I'm the person who's angry. But in that gap, something was revealed. The anger was a set of thoughts and sensations. The awareness that could hear both the angry thoughts and the child's laughter was something else. Something untouched by either. It was like discovering that you are the canvas, not the painting. The painting can be a chaotic mess, but the canvas remains clean, unstained, and ever present beneath it. That awareness is your home base. It is what you are. When you begin to rest in this awareness, even for moments, the burden of being somebody begins to lighten. You see that all your life, you've been carrying a suitcase filled with stones labeled, my past, my failures, my reputation, my needs. You thought the suitcase was you. But you are the one carrying it. And you can, in any moment, simply put it down. Not the contents of your life, but the exhausting identification with them. A pianist doesn't become the piano, she plays it. You are not the aggregates of body and mind, you are the awareness through which they are known and expressed. This understanding is the gateway to authentic freedom. From this foundation of understanding impermanence and glimpsing the non-solid nature of the self, we can look at the practical path the Buddha laid out. He was a supremely practical teacher. He didn't just point to a lofty ideal, he gave a clear, actionable map for walking out of confusion and into clarity. This map is the Noble Eightfold Path, and it can be understood as a training in three essential areas: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Let's start with the foundation, sila, or ethical conduct. In the West, we often think of morality as a set of rules imposed from the outside, often connected with guilt. In the Buddha's teaching, sila is something far more intimate and practical. It is the understanding that certain actions naturally lead to inner turmoil, while others naturally lead to inner peace. It's cause and effect, applied to the heart. The basic precepts. To refrain from harming, from taking what isn't given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, and from clouding the mind with intoxicants, are not commandments. They are trainings in non-violence, starting with yourself. When you speak a lie, you have to hold that lie in your mind. You fragment your own reality. You create a subtle friction between what is and what you've said. That friction is a source of low-grade anxiety. When you act greedily or harmfully, you sow seeds of fear and guilt in your own psyche. You make your mind a battlefield. Sila is the process of cleaning up that battlefield, of ceasing to do the things that make your own mind a difficult and haunted place to live. You cannot see clearly if you are constantly stirring up mud in your own pond. There was a man who worked as a mid-level manager. His office culture was one of subtle backstabbing, taking credit for others' work, and gossip. To get ahead, he felt he had to play the game. He would engage in the gossip, laugh at the cruel jokes, occasionally throw a colleague under the bus to make himself look better. He was successful by the company's standards, but he hated going to work. He felt a constant, sour tension in his gut. He was tired all the time. He decided to experiment. For 1 week, he would simply stop. No gossip. No cruel humor. If he couldn't praise someone, he would say nothing. He would do his work with integrity and be honest about his contributions and mistakes. The first few days were awkward. He was left out of side conversations. But by the end of the week, he noticed something startling. The sour tension in his gut was gone. The exhaustion he felt at 5 p.m. was different. It was the clean tiredness of work done, not the toxic fatigue of moral compromise. His mind was quieter. He hadn't changed his job, his salary, or his title. He had changed the quality of his own inner environment by aligning his actions with a simple ethic of harmlessness. That inner quiet is the fertile ground in which everything else can grow. This is the power of sila. It is not about being a saint for others, it is about creating a sanctuary within yourself. With a foundation of ethical living, which begins to calm the storms we create for ourselves, we can then train the mind itself. This is the second area of training. Samadhi, often translated as concentration, meditation, or unification of mind. Imagine your mind is a lamp in a windy cave. The flame flickers wildly, casting chaotic, jumping shadows. You can't see the walls of the cave clearly. Samadhi is the practice of gently shielding the flame so it steadies. The shadows become still, and you can see the cave, your own inner landscape, exactly as it is. This is not about achieving a trance or blanking out the mind. It's about developing a calm, focused, and stable attention. The most common door into this training is mindfulness of breath. You simply sit, and feel the physical sensation of the breath entering and leaving the body. The instruction is profoundly simple. When you are breathing in, know that you are breathing in. When you are breathing out, know that you are breathing out. Your mind will not cooperate for long. It will dart away into planning, remembering, worrying, daydreaming. This is not failure. This is the practice. The moment you notice your mind has wandered is a moment of pure awareness. That is the magic moment. Without judgment, with a kindness you might offer a puppy who has strayed, you gently guide your attention back to the breath. That act of noticing and returning is the rep that builds the muscle of mindfulness. You are not trying to stop thoughts. You are changing your relationship to them. You are learning that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that can observe them coming and going. I knew a woman, a mother of 2 young children, who said she had no time to meditate. Her life was a whirlwind of snacks, laundry, tears, and giggles. She felt fragmented, pulled in a dozen directions at once. On a friend's suggestion, she began practicing what she called micromeditations. While waiting for the kettle to boil, instead of picking up her phone, she would feel her feet on the floor and follow 3 complete breaths. While strapping her children into their car seats, she would pause for 5 seconds and just listen to all the sounds around her, the birds, the distant traffic, the rustle of leaves. In the shower, she would feel the water on her skin with full attention for just 1 minute. These tiny pockets of collected awareness began to act as reset buttons throughout her day. She discovered that samadhi isn't only found on a cushion for 30 minutes, it is the quality of gathered, present attention that can be brought to any fragment of time. The chaos of her life didn't disappear, but she was no longer completely lost in it. She had found a still point within the turning world. This is the purpose of mental training. Not to escape life, but to meet it fully, without being swept away. From this steadier, clearer mind, true panna, or wisdom, can dawn. This is the 3rd training. Wisdom is not intellectual knowledge. You can read all the Buddhist texts and be a brilliant scholar without a drop of panna. Panna is direct, intuitive insight. It's the difference between reading a detailed description of the taste of honey and actually tasting it on your tongue. This wisdom has a specific content in the Buddha's teaching. It is the direct, personal realization of the truths we've been discussing. It is seeing impermanence not as a concept, but as the actual, felt reality of this breath, never the same, always arriving and departing. It is feeling the truth of suffering not as a theory, but as the tangible ache that arises when you cling to a pleasant moment, demanding it not end. It is the liberating glimpse of non-self, not as a philosophy, but as the lived experience of being awareness itself, not its content. These 3 trainings, sila, samadhi, panna, support each other like a 3-legged stool. Ethical conduct creates the relative peace necessary to sit and look inward without being consumed by regret or anxiety. Mental concentration stabilizes the attention so it can look deeply and clearly. And wisdom, when it arises, then deepens your commitment to ethical living and focused attention. It becomes a virtuous, upward spiral of understanding. Now, let's bring this path down onto the wet streets of daily life. Let's talk about Vedana, feeling tone. The Buddha was a brilliant psychologist. He noticed that every single experience, every moment of contact through our senses, comes with a basic, immediate feeling tone, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is not a deep emotion. It's the primal, initial flavor. You taste ice cream, pleasant. You hear a screech of brakes, unpleasant. You see a gray wall, neutral. This happens countless times a day. Our suffering is manufactured in what happens next. The mind grabs that feeling tone and spins a story. Pleasant feeling. I like this. I want more of this. I must have this to be happy. That's craving, tanha. Unpleasant feeling. I don't like this. This shouldn't be. I must get rid of this to be safe. That's aversion, dosa. Neutral feeling. Often, we simply ignore it, or find it boring, and go looking for something more stimulating. Mindfulness is the tool that interrupts this automatic chain reaction. It allows you to insert a moment of space between the feeling tone and the compulsive reaction. You feel the unpleasant sensation of stress. Instead of immediately becoming the thought, "I'm so stressed, I can't handle this," you note, unpleasant feeling is present. You feel the pleasant tug of desire when you see something you like. Instead of becoming the thought, "I need to buy that," you note, pleasant feeling is present. You are relating to the feeling, not being hijacked by it. You see it as a temporary weather pattern in the sky of your awareness. This changes everything. This is how you stop shooting the second arrow. There's a story of a fisherman who loved the sea but hated the rain. Every time he felt a drop, he would curse the sky, his mood would blacken, and he would have a miserable day on the water, fighting against the weather. One day, an old sailor said to him, "The rain isn't the problem. Your war with the rain is the problem. You can't stop the drops, but you can put on a coat." The fisherman, reluctantly, bought a good raincoat. The next time it rained, he put it on. He was dry. He could still feel the chill in the air, hear the patter on his hood, but he was no longer in a state of angry resistance. He even began to notice the beauty of the rain on the water, the clean smell in the air. The rain hadn't changed. His relationship to it had. The unpleasant feeling tone was still there, but he was no longer adding the layer of, "This shouldn't be." His mind was free to see the rest of the experience. Our practice is like finding that raincoat for all of life's inevitable weather. This ability to be with experience, without immediately being commandeered by craving or aversion, opens the door to a profound quality of heart, upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is not indifference. It is not a cold, uncaring detachment. It is the deep, wise balance of a heart that understands the nature of things. It is the ability to remain steady, compassionate, and clear-seeing amidst the inevitable successes and failures, joys and sorrows, praise and blame of a human life. It is the mind of the mountain, unshaken by the winds that howl around its peaks. The mountain doesn't stop the wind, it is simply too deeply rooted to be moved by it. This is the equanimity we cultivate. We often confuse peace with the absence of difficulty. We think, "I will be at peace when my problems are solved, when everyone is happy, when my life is smooth." That is a peace built on sand, dependent on conditions we cannot control. The peace of equanimity is different. It is the peace of the ocean depths. On the surface, there may be crashing waves and howling storms, this is the content of our lives. But in the still, quiet depths, there is a profound calm that is untouched by the surface weather. Equanimity is our capacity to connect with those depths, even while navigating the waves. It's knowing that you are not only the wave, you are also the ocean. This quality is essential for living a compassionate life without burning out. Consider a caregiver, a nurse, a parent, a therapist. If they become completely identified with every pain they encounter, feeling it as their own, they will be overwhelmed and collapse. That is not compassion, it is fusion. True compassion, karuna, is combined with equanimity. It is the open-hearted response to suffering, coupled with the wisdom that this pain is not yours to own or fix. It is the ability to hold a hand and offer comfort while knowing you cannot take away another person's journey. You offer your presence, your care, your skills, but you do not attach their outcome to your own sense of worth. This balanced heart can serve endlessly because it is not being depleted. It is drawing from the infinite well of awareness itself, not from the limited reservoir of personal emotion. A teacher I once knew worked with troubled teenagers. Early in her career, she would ride an emotional roller coaster with each student. A student's success was her victory, a student's relapse was her personal failure. She was exhausted, fried, and on the verge of quitting. Then she began to practice. She learned to see her students not as projects to be fixed, but as young human beings walking their own difficult paths. She could offer discipline, kindness, and structure without needing them to get better for her own peace of mind. Her calm became a stabilizing force in the classroom. She stopped taking their outbursts personally. She could see the pain beneath the anger without being triggered by the anger itself. Her effectiveness increased, not because she cared less, but because she cared from a place of greater wisdom and steadiness. She had found equanimity. Her love was no longer a tangled knot of need, it was a clear, clean stream of genuine goodwill. From this place of balanced awareness, we can look at one of the most beautiful frameworks the Buddha offered for the cultivation of heart, the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. These are four qualities that, when cultivated, become the natural dwelling place of a wise mind. They are metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekkha, equanimity, itself. These are not emotions we strain to feel. They are capacities we uncover by removing the barriers to them, barriers like ill will, cruelty, envy, and agitation. Metta is the practice of unconditional friendliness. It begins with offering wishes for well-being to yourself. This is not selfish, it is foundational. You cannot offer from an empty cup. You silently repeat phrases like, "May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." You then extend these same genuine wishes to a benefactor, a friend, a neutral person, a difficult person, and eventually to all beings everywhere. This is not about manufacturing a gushy feeling. It's about cultivating a fundamental attitude of non-hostility, of goodwill. It's planting seeds of friendliness in your own heart garden. When you stand in line and feel irritation toward the slow person ahead of you, metta practice might allow you to think, like me, this person wishes to be happy. Like me, they may be having a hard day. The irritation may not vanish, but it loses its sharp, personal edge. It is met with a wider, kinder perspective. Karuna, compassion, is what arises when metta meets suffering. It is the heart's natural, trembling response to pain, coupled with the wish to relieve it. When you see someone struggling, instead of turning away in discomfort or jumping in to fix them from a place of anxiety, compassion allows you to stay present. You might offer help, or you might simply offer a silent, inner acknowledgement, "This is suffering. May you be free from this suffering." This practice softens the heart and dissolves the illusion of separation. Their pain is not other. It is part of the shared human condition. Mudita is the most challenging for many, and the most liberating. It is sympathetic joy, delighting in the good fortune, success, and happiness of others. In a culture of comparison, our default is often envy. Why them? Why not me? Mudita is the direct antidote to that poison. It is the practice of consciously rejoicing when a colleague gets a promotion, when a friend finds love, when a stranger laughs with delight. You train the mind to think, how wonderful. I am happy for your happiness. This practice dismantles the zero-sum game we think life is. It reveals that joy is limitless. Another's joy does not diminish the pool available to you. In fact, their joy can increase your own. Celebrating others' success becomes a source of happiness, not a source of depletion. And all of these rest upon the foundation of upekkha, equanimity, which allows us to offer metta, karuna, and mudita without burning out, without attachment to results, and without discrimination. This is the full flowering of the heart. It's not that you love everyone equally in a personal, emotional sense. It's that you hold all beings in a field of wise, compassionate awareness, wishing them well, responding to their pain, celebrating their joy, and accepting that their path is their own. Your inner peace is no longer contingent on their choices. This is the heart of true, boundless freedom. Let's turn our attention to one of the most practical and immediate applications of this path: how we work, how we engage in our daily tasks, how we inhabit our roles. The Buddha called this samma ajiva, or right livelihood. It is an integral part of the Noble Eightfold Path. This is not merely a suggestion to choose an ethically clean job, though that is part of it. At its deepest level, right livelihood is about the spirit and awareness you bring to whatever work you do. It is about transforming action itself into a field of practice, a place where wisdom is embodied. Right livelihood means work that does not cause harm, that is honest, and that ideally contributes to the welfare of others in some way. It rules out trades that directly exploit, deceive, or harm living beings. But for most of us, our work isn't so starkly black and white. The deeper question becomes, can you bring the qualities of mindfulness, compassion, and integrity into your existing work? Can your work become an expression of your understanding, rather than a betrayal of it? A man named Leo was a janitor in a large, busy hospital. For years, he saw his job as a mere means to a paycheck, a series of monotonous tasks, mopping floors, emptying bins, cleaning windows. He felt invisible, resentful of the doctors and nurses who seemed so important. He moved through the halls with a kind of grim, mechanical efficiency, his mind filled with thoughts of getting through his shift. One evening, he was cleaning a room where an elderly patient was struggling to sleep. The man was anxious, in pain. Without thinking, Leo, instead of quickly finishing his task, paused. He made gentle eye contact and said softly, "Rough night, huh?" He then took an extra moment to carefully smooth the sheets by the man's side, his movements slower, more deliberate. The patient let out a sigh, a small release of tension, and whispered, "Thank you." In that moment, something shifted for Leo. He saw that his work wasn't just about cleaning surfaces, it was about caring for the environment in which healing, or suffering, took place. His calm, careful presence could be a small part of the medicine. From that day on, he didn't just clean rooms, he tended to them. He brought a quality of quiet respect to his mopping, his wiping, his emptying. He began to see the hospital not as a workplace, but as an ecosystem of care, and he saw his own essential role within it. His job description didn't change, but his entire experience of the work was transformed. He had discovered right livelihood not by changing his job, but by changing the consciousness with which he did it. This is a crucial point. We often think freedom and peace will come when we change our external circumstances, a new job, a new relationship, a new city. While change is sometimes necessary, the primary transformation is always internal. The Buddha's path is about changing the performer, not just the performance. When you bring mindfulness to your work, it ceases to be merely a transaction of time for money. It becomes an opportunity for presence. Whether you are writing code, preparing a meal, teaching a child, or balancing accounts, you can do it with full attention. You can notice the sensations in your body, the quality of your intention, the impact of your actions. You can perform your task without the frantic energy of getting it over with, and without the desperate hope that this work will finally validate you. You work from wholeness, not from lack. This relates directly to the Buddha's teaching on karma. In popular culture, karma is often seen as a cosmic scorecard of good and bad deeds, a system of punishment and reward. In the Buddha's teaching, karma is far more intimate and immediate. The Pali word kamma simply means action. And the Buddha said, intention is karma. It is the volition, the motive behind an action, that shapes its fruit. The fruit is not a future reward or punishment from an external force, it is the immediate and lasting imprint the action leaves on your own heart and mind, and the patterns it sets in motion. Two people can give the same amount of money to charity. One gives with a heart full of genuine generosity, joy, and care for others. The other gives out of a sense of grim obligation, or with the hope of being recognized and praised. The external action is identical. The karmic fruit, however, is worlds apart. The first person strengthens patterns of openness, joy, and connection. They feel lighter, more aligned. The second person reinforces patterns of resentment, calculation, and separation. They may feel heavier, more divided. The karma is in the quality of the intention. This is why mindfulness of intention is such a powerful practice. Before you speak or act, you can pause and ask inwardly, what is moving me to do this? Is it kindness? Is it fear? Is it a need to be seen? Is it genuine care? This moment of inquiry creates a space of choice. You are no longer an automaton running on old conditioning. You can choose to act from a clearer, more compassionate place. I recall a time I agreed to help a friend move apartments. My initial intention was mixed, part genuine care for my friend, part a sense of, I should, and a small, hidden part that wanted to be seen as a good person. Halfway through the day, carrying a heavy box up a flight of stairs, I caught myself feeling resentful and exhausted. I paused on the landing. I asked myself, why am I really here? In that honest moment, I saw the clinging to my good person identity. I saw the burden of that story. I let out a breath, let that story go, and simply felt the weight of the box in my hands, the ache in my muscles, and saw my friend's grateful face. The intention clarified. I was here to help my friend. Period. The resentment vanished. The fatigue remained, but it was a clean, physical fatigue, not a burdensome, psychological one. The rest of the day felt light, even joyful. That was a lesson in karma, the suffering wasn't in the moving. It was in the confused intention. When the intention clarified, the suffering ceased. This understanding empowers us. It means freedom is available in the very next choice you make. You don't have to wait to purify all your past actions. You can begin right now, with your next intention. Will it be governed by greed, hatred, and delusion? Or by generosity, kindness, and wisdom? That choice, moment to moment, is what shapes your character, your life, and your experience of peace. One of the most subtle and persistent forms of suffering arises not from what happens to us, but from our relationship with time itself. We live so often in the phantom realm of memory and anticipation, while the solid ground of the present moment goes unnoticed beneath our feet. The Buddha's path is a profound homecoming to the now. It is a training in presence, in inhabiting the only time and place where life is ever actually happening. This is the essence of mindfulness or sati. The ability to remember to be present. Mindfulness is often misunderstood. It is not a state of blank-minded calm, nor is it a forceful concentration that excludes everything but one object. True mindfulness is a balanced, relaxed alertness. It is the clear, accepting awareness of whatever is happening in the present moment, in the body, in the feelings, in the mind, and in the world around you. It is knowing that you are walking while you walk, knowing that you are feeling tension while you feel it, knowing that a thought is passing through while it passes. You are not lost in the movie, you are aware that you are sitting in the theater, watching the screen. This practice can be brought to the simplest of activities. There's a story of a woman who took up pottery. At first, she was obsessed with the end product. She would get frustrated when a vase collapsed on the wheel or cracked in the kiln. Her joy was entirely conditional on a successful outcome. Then her teacher gave her a simple instruction: for 1 month, make bowls. But you must destroy each one before it is fired. Your task is not to make a bowl. Your task is to be completely present with the feeling of the clay, the sound of the wheel, the movement of your hands. Reluctantly, she agreed. For weeks, she centered clay, raised walls, shaped curves, and then squashed the creation back into a lump. At first, it felt pointless and maddening. But slowly, something shifted. Freed from the anxiety of outcome, her attention sank fully into the sensory world of the process. She felt the cool, gritty slip of the clay, heard the rhythmic hum of the wheel, noticed the precise pressure of her fingertips. She became intimate with the medium itself. She discovered a deep, wordless joy in the pure act of creating, a joy that was independent of any finished object. When she finally returned to making pieces to keep, her work had transformed. It had a quiet confidence, a graceful simplicity that hadn't been there before. She had learned to dwell in the process, and the quality of her presence became the quality of her art. We can practice this right now, wherever we are. Let's take a moment together. Allow your attention to settle into the physical body. Feel the points of contact, your back against the chair, your feet on the floor, your hands resting. Notice any sensations: warmth, pressure, tingling, perhaps an ache. Just feel them, without needing to change them. Now, bring your attention to the breath. Don't control it. Simply notice the gentle rhythm. The cool air entering, the warm air leaving. The slight rise and fall of the chest or abdomen. For these few moments, there is nowhere to go. Nothing to fix. Just this breath. Just this body. Just this moment. If the mind wanders into thought, and it will, that's perfectly fine. The moment you notice it has wandered, that noticing is itself an act of mindfulness. Gently, without any self-criticism, guide your attention back to the breath. This simple act of returning is the core of the practice. It is a radical act of kindness toward your own scattered mind. This cultivated presence is our greatest ally when we face difficulty. The Buddha taught the metaphor of the two arrows. The first arrow is life's inevitable pain, the physical injury, the loss, the disappointment, the stressful event. This arrow hurts. The second arrow, however, is our reaction to the first arrow, our mental resistance, our stories of, "This shouldn't be happening," our anger, our fear, our projection of the pain into a future of endless suffering. The first arrow is often unavoidable. The second arrow is optional. We shoot it into our own hearts with our thoughts. Mindfulness allows us to feel the sting of the first arrow without reaching for the quiver to shoot the second. We can meet the raw sensation of pain without adding the layer of catastrophic narrative. We can feel sadness without the story, "I am a sad person and my life is ruined." This space between the event and our reaction is where our freedom lies. A young athlete trained for years for a specific Olympic event. Her entire identity was wrapped up in being a competitor. In a qualifying race, she tripped and fell, tearing a ligament. The first arrow was the searing physical pain and the immediate knowledge that her dream was over. As she lay on the track, the second arrows began to fly. "This is unfair. My life is over. I've wasted my youth. Everyone will pity me." The mental suffering was, in those first minutes, far worse than the physical pain. But because she had some training in mindfulness from a sports psychologist, she remembered to breathe. In the ambulance, instead of fueling the storm of thoughts, she turned her attention to the physical sensations in her leg, the throbbing, the heat, the pressure of the bandage. She stayed with the pure sensation, breath by breath. The catastrophic thoughts didn't disappear, but they lost their gripping power. They became like loud signs passing by a train window. She could see them, but she wasn't on the signs, she was on the train of her breath and her body. This didn't erase the grief or the difficulty of her recovery, but it prevented her from being completely consumed by it. She faced her rehabilitation with a clarity and resilience that surprised her doctors. She had learned to receive the first arrow with awareness, and in doing so, she had laid down the second. This practice of presence is how we reclaim our lives from the autopilot of habit and worry. It is how we taste the food we eat, hear the music we listen to, and truly see the faces of the people we love. It is the antidote to the feeling that life is passing us by in a blur. By learning to land in the present, we discover that this moment, whatever it contains, is workable. It may be painful, it may be joyful, it may be boring, but we can meet it. And in that meeting, we find a dignity and a strength that does not depend on circumstances. One of the most common obstacles on the path of awareness is the deeply ingrained habit of judgment, of ourselves, of others, of our experience. We live in a constant inner commentary of like and dislike, good and bad, success and failure. This judging mind creates a subtle but constant tension, a background static of dissatisfaction. The Buddha's teaching on right view and right intention guides us toward a different way of seeing, one of discernment instead of judgment, of clarity instead of condemnation. Judgment is reactive and personal. It says, "This is bad, and I don't like it." Discernment is investigative and impersonal. It says, "This action leads to suffering, this action leads to peace." judgment tightens the heart and divides the world into me versus that. Discernment opens the mind and sees cause and effect. When you make a mistake, the judging mind says, "I am a failure." The discerning mind notes, "An unskillful action was taken." What can be learned? One creates shame and contraction, the other creates space for growth and understanding. Our practice is to gently translate judgment into discernment, to replace the harsh inner critic with a wise inner observer. This shift is critical when working with difficult emotions like anger, fear, or jealousy. These are not bad emotions to be eradicated. In the Buddha's framework, they are simply mental states, conditioned phenomena that arise based on causes. When anger arises, the untrained mind judges it. Anger is bad. I shouldn't feel this. I'm a terrible person for being angry. This judgment adds a layer of suffering on top of the anger itself. The mindful approach is to discern, anger is present. It feels like heat in the chest, tightness in the jaw, aggressive thoughts. It arose because a boundary was crossed, or a need was unmet. You can investigate the anger without becoming it, without letting it define you. You can say, "There is anger," rather than, "I am angry." This simple shift in language reflects a profound shift in identity, from being the emotion to being the awareness that knows the emotion. The emotion then becomes an object of mindfulness, something to be understood, not something you are. A friend of mine, a normally gentle person, found herself in a rage after a neighbor repeatedly blocked her driveway. Her thoughts were vengeful and sharp. Remembering her practice, she went inside and sat down. Instead of following the thoughts, she turned her attention to the physical experience of the rage. She felt the fire in her face, the clenched fists, the rapid heartbeat. She stayed with these raw sensations, breathing into them. She didn't judge them as bad, she just observed them as intense energy. After about 10 minutes, the physical intensity subsided. What was left was not the rage, but the clear, underlying feeling that had sparked it, a sense of powerlessness, of not being respected. With the storm of anger calm, she could see that clearly. From that clearer place, she was able to walk over to her neighbor's house and have a firm but respectful conversation about the driveway. Her response was effective and did not damage the relationship. She had used discernment to navigate the anger, rather than being used by it. This ability to hold our experience with non-judgmental awareness is the foundation for true self-compassion and compassion for others. When we stop fighting our own inner states, we develop a gentle intimacy with ourselves. We see our patterns, our wounds, our triggers not as enemies, but as parts of a landscape to be understood. This inner reconciliation then naturally extends outward. When we see someone else acting out of anger or fear, we are less likely to judge them as a bad person, and more likely to see a suffering person caught in a difficult mental state. Our response can shift from condemnation to curiosity, from attack to empathy. This is how the practice of mindfulness heals not only our own hearts but begins to heal our relationships and our communities. The Buddha placed great emphasis on community or sangha. He did not teach that awakening was a purely solitary endeavor. We are social beings, and our minds are deeply influenced by those around us. The company we keep acts as a mirror and a reinforcement. Surrounding ourselves with people who are also committed to mindfulness, ethics, and wisdom provides invaluable support. It's like being a seed planted in fertile soil with other healthy plants. The collective intention for awakening creates a field that nurtures each individual. This is why, throughout history, practitioners have gathered. Not to perform rituals blindly, but to support each other's commitment to the path, to remind one another of the teachings, and to practice the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, in real relationship. There's a lovely story from a small mindfulness group that met weekly. One member, an elderly man, was losing his eyesight. He became quiet and withdrawn, embarrassed by his increasing clumsiness and dependence. The group's facilitator didn't make a big speech. She simply changed the format of their tea break. She asked everyone to close their eyes while pouring their tea and passing the cups. Suddenly, they were all fumbling, laughing, helping each other find the sugar, guiding each other's hands. In that shared experience of temporary blindness, the elderly man's isolation melted. He was no longer the only one struggling, he was just one of the group, navigating a challenge together. The community had intuitively practiced mudita, sympathetic joy, in his small victories and karuna, compassion, for his struggle, all within a container of metta, friendliness. Their shared practice became a living, breathing support system. This is the Sangha in action, not a perfect group of enlightened beings, but a gathering of humans supporting each other's humanity and their common aspiration toward freedom. Your own community of support might be a formal group, a few friends, or even the virtual companionship of teachings like these. The key is to recognize that you don't have to walk this path alone. Seeking out reflections of wisdom and kindness in others is a wise and courageous act. It counteracts the ingrained habit of isolation and the belief that our struggles are uniquely ours. In the mirror of wise community, we see our shared condition, and our hearts open in recognition. And so we arrive here, not at an end, but at a silent beginning. We have walked through landscapes of thought, exploring the nature of craving, the truth of impermanence, the freedom of non-self, the grounding of ethics, the steadiness of meditation, the warmth of compassion, and the transformative power of mindful presence. Yet all of these words, all of these concepts, are merely fingers pointing at the moon. They are not the moon itself. The moon. The silent, aware, peaceful presence that you are, has been here all along, shining behind the passing clouds of your thoughts and stories. The path the Buddha offered is not about adding anything to who you are. It is a path of gentle subtraction, a letting go of what you are not. It is the unhurried process of putting down the heavy suitcases you've been carrying, the suitcase of my past, the suitcase of my future, the suitcase of who I should be. What remains when these stories are set down, even for a moment? What remains is simple, awake, and effortlessly present. It is the listening that hears these words. It is the feeling that senses the air on your skin. It is the aware space that holds it all. This is not something you need to attain. It is your natural state, momentarily forgotten in the busyness of being someone. The real practice begins now, in the ordinary moments of your life. It is the conscious breath you take when you feel overwhelmed. It is the pause before speaking in anger. It is the full attention you give to washing a single dish. It is the gentle noticing of a judgmental thought, and the softening that follows. It is the silent wish for well-being you extend to a stranger who seems troubled. This is how wisdom walks on the earth, not in grand gestures, but in 1,000 small, kind, attentive moments. You do not need to be perfect. You will forget. You will get lost in old patterns. This is not failure, it is part of the human journey. The practice is in the loving return, the remembering to come back to this breath, this sensation, this moment. Each return is a victory of awareness. Each moment of presence is a stone laid on the path home. So as we close, let this not be a goodbye, but a deepening. Carry this quiet knowing with you. You are not a problem to be solved. You are awareness itself, experiencing the tender, fleeting, beautiful human dream. There is nothing to fear. Nothing is missing. In this very moment, exactly as it is, you are already home. May you walk gently. May you meet each experience with an open heart. May you know the peace that exists not because of circumstances, but prior to all conditions. It has always been here. It is here now. Rest in this. Thank you for being here, in the sacred space of Monk's Temple.